Thanks a lot. Hi everyone, I welcome you all to Advanced UX Prototyping, Finding the Fun minus the Code. Few bits about me. I'm Om Tandon, currently working as Director of UX at Digit Games Dublin. I've been in the games industry for over 14 years, building teams, pipelines, and processes. And during my tenure, I've been lucky to have worked on some of the world's best brands and IPs. The most recent one being Star Trek Fleet Command, developed by Digit and published by our publisher Scopely. So that's enough information about me. Let's dive straight in. And before we start talking about what UX prototyping is, I think it's very fair to ask, why do we even need it? Now, in my mind, there are three distinct reasons. The first is user-centered design. Now, what is UCD? It is the methodology which drives the entire discipline of user experience. And in the simplest way possible, user-centered design means keeping the user at the center of the design process when you start designing a product right from the beginning. And I'll get to it in a bit. Second reason is when you're shipping a product, test for MVX and not just MVP. Now, what is MVP? In traditional software development model, it's all about develop a minimum viable product, with limited time and money, ship it out, get feedback, iterate. But that's changing. That's changing in the last 5 years. And the reason for that is with so many companies now investing in user experience as a discipline, the minimum experience that a user expects from a product has gone up. The bar has gone up. So the point is, if you're shipping an MVP that does not meet the minimum viable experience that the users are used to, then you're not going to cut it. So the mentality is shifting from shipping a MVP to a MVX, or a minimum viable experience that users will accept. And third is validate ideas. This is a no-brainer, right? Don't you want to validate the product that you're building actually resonates with the end user? They find it enchanting and engaging before you pour millions of dollars developing it. Now, I want you guys to look at this, what I call the pyramid of pre-production. Now, what is pre-production? Let's say you want to build a new feature or a new game idea. Where would you start? Right here. You will start in pre-production where you will work on a feature spec. And these teams are involved in it. Product, game design, user experience, user interface, and art. Now, in the traditional software development model, the users are siloed. They have no say in this process. What happens is you lock down a feature spec, it goes into development a month or two afterwards, we ship a alpha or beta build, and then you get feedback. But we are saying that's way too late. So what we instead try to do is, through rapid prototyping, or what we call UX prototyping, we try to convert the feature spec into a prototype, which by conducting a usability session, we can get qualitative data on, and we can get this feedback and pull it back into the process. That way, we can avoid any big loopholes, or errors that might be made. Now, I'm going to shift focus to how me and my team started working with UX prototypes. 3 years back, when I joined Digit, it was a fairly small studio, still expanding, and we thought, okay, we want to do UX prototyping, but we had these two constraints. There was no dev supports for building a prototype. And the reason for that is in most studios, dev capacity is a precious resource, right? Because if you have features in development on the production floor, you can't pull a developer in. Second was pushing the boundaries of existing UX tools. Now, we still have an alternative. If we don't have developers, that's fine. In the market, there are UX tools which allow designers like me to, prototype without writing any code or minimal code. But the challenge with that is all those tools have been designed keeping in mind utility software, enterprise software, not games. So the challenge we faced was, how do we take these UX tools and adapt them in a way that we can achieve our game prototyping goals. So before we proceed, I'll show you when I joined Digit, one of the game designers was prototyping and he was using PowerPoint presentations. And it's a very simple but beautiful concept. So imagine this is a hypothetical alliance feature. And what he did was he created a hotspot on each area and hyperlinked it to another slide. So what could happen is, let's say if you click on alliance name at the top, you would go to this slide. And it's showing you when the user clicks on it, a keyboard will come up, you can type in your name and so on. Now, the thing is, it's functional, right? It still tells you what's the function of that feature. But can I, for say, take this PPT, give it to my players, actual players, and ask them for feedback? Probably not. And imagine this game is supposed to work on a mobile phone. So you can see that while it's functional, it's not just cutting it. And the question we asked is, could we do better? Now, in order to do that, the first thing I did was I started a R&D sprint in the UX department, and for the next 2-3 weeks, we looked at all the UX prototyping tools that designers can use that were available in the market. We mapped out their pros and cons, we spent time with them, and finally, we settled on a tool called Principle, which is very similar to other tools out there, but we felt we are more comfortable with it, and we can adapt it to our needs. Now, here's an example of the very first prototype I built. It's a personal prototype using this tool. So this is a ship inventory feature. This is a low-fidelity wireframe prototype. The user can, click on a ship, get information about it, see its stats, what are the components he can apply, what does he needs to, he can see the progression, at what level he will unlock a feature or a component. So you can see that this is running on a device. A user is actually testing it. There's all information hierarchy, everything we need to learn about usability, we can get data on. Now compare it with the PowerPoint prototype I showed you earlier. This is a step forward, right? Because it's device ready, I can get feedback from real users, and it's shared vision. I can show it to my stakeholder group and ask for feedback, or even show it to developers and show them how this feature is supposed to come together, how the user is supposed to interact with it. So what we now do is, as best practice, we develop a low-fidelity prototype for every feature spec we do. And it's quite simple. It can take anywhere between half a day to just 1 day to create complex interactions. So over a period of time, we asked ourselves, it's effective, it works, it helps UX team get the data, validate the design decisions we are making, but could we collect more holistic feedback? Now, what do I mean by holistic feedback? Remember when I showed you that pyramid of pre-production? I told you there were different teams involved, right? This product, game design, UX, UI, and art. Now, through low-fidelity prototyping, we were able to get feedback for the UX team, how intuitive or usable that feature is. But what about other teams? Could we get any early qualitative data for them? And in order to achieve that, we thought we'll move towards high-fidelity prototyping. And to do that, we restructured how we did pre-production sprints. They are usually 2 to 3 weeks long. So what we did, we followed this kind of a agile waterfall hybrid model, where we stacked when and where different teams are supposed to interact with the feature spec. And by creating those overlaps, there was a window of opportunity where a high-fidelity prototype can be created in the first 2 weeks of pre-production. Here's again an example of a personal prototype that I've built. This is about a match 3 game, and this is high fidelity. So there's a character, there's art, you can see that. He's giving a tutorial. He's teaching the player, he has to match similar looking tiles. Just think Candy Crush Saga, okay? So you're in the tutorial mode. Now you're in a level progression map, very much like a real game. And you can see that, you can see more UI, you can see more graphics. Players trying to match tiles which don't match, he's getting a negative feedback, just like the real game. He matches similar looking tile, there's a positive feedback, there's animations, background, foreground, user actually interacting with it. So you can see that how immersive it feels, because it's mimicking, it's simulating a micro session of actual game's core loop or mechanics. It's teaching a booster mechanics though. Again. So something like this can be built with the right team, with the right process, anywhere between 3 to 5 days without writing a single line of code, all in pre-production. So if we compare this with the low fidelity prototype I showed you, the wireframe one, you can see that we have moved up a ladder. With low fidelity prototype, we were testing and getting data for UX team. But here, we are not just checking for usability. We are testing for how engaging the product could be. Of course, you'll iterate more on it, but this is a very good way to get early feedback on your early concept art, your early UI direction, to try out new game mechanics. So we reserve building high fidelity prototypes only for important features. Let's say the battle loop, or your combat loop, or your base building, or your inventory design. Not for simple features like your message inbox or chat, because they are known mental models. We don't need to test them very rigorously. So over a period of time, we did that. We applied a lot of this learning to Star Trek Fleet Command. We were able to validate ideas very quickly, iterate on them in the design process without going through the pain of developing it and then kind of discovering, oh, there's something major broken. Now again, the question was, okay, these are delightful, but are we still missing something? Now the reason for that is, over a period of time, building these prototypes testing them with real users, I realized there's a fundamental difference between how utility applications work and how games work. Now, what are utility applications? Think of a banking app, think of Lyft or Uber. They are utility apps on your phone, right? And most of them follow what we call a T-type model. Now, what's a T-type model? In T-type model, a user can go deep, but he doesn't need to go wide. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you have a banking application. What all can you do in it? You can check your account statement. Where all did you spend your money in the last month? You can make a transaction. You can pay someone some money through it. Or you can download an e-statement, if you want to apply for a mortgage or a loan. So the distinction here is, in a utility application, for one session to be meaningful, all you need to do is just one task, and it can be satisfying. One session is defined as, by the way, the amount of time a player or a user opens an app or a game, goes inside, does something, and gets out. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have to pay your rent. You open your banking app, you go inside, you select your landlord, and you pay him, and you get out. That session is satisfying, right? Because that's what you needed to do. But in order to make that transaction, you didn't need to check your account statement, right? Where all did you spend your money in the last month, or download an e-statement? Why? Because those tasks are not interrelated. Now, shift your focus to the image on the right. Now, this is the type 8 prototyping model. Games are fundamentally different because what we are trying to do in games is moving the player from one loop to the other through nudges and notification. Here's an example. I open a game. I see there's a daily reward. It's a daily chest. I click on it. A bunch of currencies come out. And then I see one of the buildings in my base mode show an upgrade arrow because I have got now enough currency to upgrade it. I click on it. I upgrade it. And then I notice there's a notification in my message inbox. I click on it, and I see while I was away, another player attacked my base, stole my resources, and now I see a big revenge button. You know what's going to happen. I'm going to hit it. So by design, in games, we are pushing the player from one loop to the other. So a meaningful session in an app can be just around doing one task, the banking app. But in games, it means doing a collection of tasks. Only then it feels progressive. It is highly unlikely that a player will open a game, collect his daily reward, and get out of it. That doesn't happen, right? And we know that from data. So this is called the type 8 methodology. And based on that, we built the second generation prototypes, which are way more advanced, and they follow this philosophy. So I'm going to show you an example. So this is a hypothetical project. Sorry, the sound is not playing. So this is simulating the core loop of a, you can notice there's sound in it, embedded sound in it. Mid-core game like Boom Beach. Notice the health bars. So this way, we are creating way more immersion. You can see there are animations in the background. The sound actually changes based on what's happening. Now the game is pushing me to the base building mode. You got a nice feedback. I'm going to scroll around. You'll see a bit of parallax, depth of field. This is a prototype which has been developed without writing a code, without using a game engine. And you can, anybody's interested, it's on my phone. It's even way more immersive. And you can see how it lives, feels, breathes just like a real game. It's pushing me back to the combat mode. It's going to teach me a booster mechanics. There's a drag and drop mechanics, as you will see. And this is all happening real time, based on players' interaction. This is not a video that's running in the background. So notice how the booster follows the movement of my finger, just like it would happen in a real game. And if you notice, this victory screen is different from the previous one. So that's another way you can A/B test things. Imagine this gives you the flexibility to A/B test your animations, sound, and even a game mechanics. Drag and drop versus just tap and deploy. So just to prove that it's not linear, here's another video. And I'll show you everything is related to how player reacts. I have 2 units. I've just deployed 1 time. Just observe. I'm not going to deploy the second time. I can exit if I want to. I can forfeit the match. Not going to do that. Just watch the health bar go. So you can see that. This time, based on players' reaction time, how I got a different result. I didn't win, I lose, just as it would happen in the real end product. So these generation 2 prototypes are a great way to get early feedback in pre-production on game mechanics, usability, VFX, art, and as I showed you, even sound. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of our presentation. I would like to thank these people who helped me put together this video, this presentation, and also a bit of promotion. We are hiring. Yeah, and any questions are there, I would be happy to take. Plus, anybody wants to see what these prototypes feel like, just drop by. I have them on my phone.
Great, yeah. Any questions? I will rush you to the mic. Come on, think of it as free consulting. Excellent. There you go. Hand straight up.
Okay, you showed a kind of grid list of tools that you had a look at earlier on. Did you settle on one, and which is it you use for your hi-fi?
Sure. So we are using Principle. It's called Principle for Mac, and that's the tool we are using. But the only catch there is through our learnings, we have developed our own methodology, pipelines, and techniques which allow us to have greater control. If you go and search for tutorials, there are good tutorials out there, but they won't teach you how to build this. But yeah, it's very powerful. You just have to spend time with it. Principle for Mac.
Anybody else? No need to be shy. Brilliant.
So I've been trying to push my team to use Proto.io.
Yeah.
You said you end up with Principle, right?
So to be honest, I'm pretty sure the way these tools are evolving, they're fairly similar, homogeneous. There's not that much difference. It's just what your team feels comfortable doing. We chose it 3 years back. Maybe I'm hearing now there are things like Marvel and Flinto, which actually allow you to code as well. So maybe they're better, but it's all about what your team is comfortable with and what are the results you are trying to get.
Okay, so part of the reason I'm asking is I've noticed that to achieve some of what we want to achieve with Proto.io, I'm having to kind of push the team a little closer to coding than they're really comfortable with. So I was wondering whether Principle let you build all of that with zero coding or with little coding.
Okay, so that's a very good question. And because it was just a 15-minute session, all I could do was give you an overview. Feel free to connect with me. I have actually written a 4-page article. For people who don't know, I'm also a guest writer at Deconstructor of Fun. I write time to time for them, but I also maintain my own personal blog. In that, I've spoken about what can be simulated. For example, if it's a first-person shooter game, no, sorry, you can't do that. But 80% of hyper-casual to casual to mid-core, and everything was prototyped for Star Trek Fleet Command using this. So I'm very confident everything from match 3 to hyper-casual to casual mid-core can be simulated. It's just spending time with it, and it's a bit of hacking. As creative people, we need to do it, but we can achieve a lot.
Awesome. I mean, this is badass stuff. So.
Thank you. You should see on the device. It's way better.
Brilliant. Well, I suspect you might get mobbed as you leave on that regard, so
awesome.
Feel free to mob this. No,
thanks,
I don't authorise that. Yeah, but we should give him a warm round of applause. That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.